Well, joining us to talk more about this latest review in the travel advisory is a public health practitioner, Dr. Alera Roberts. She joins us now virtually. Glad to have you on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
What's your take on the latest revised travel protocol?
I think it's a very welcome development. There's no doubt we do need to return to as pretty much near normal as we can, and certainly making travel easier, particularly for people who have business to conduct, is one good way of revamping the economy. Don't forget that the lockdown has really caused us a lot of economic hardship in Nigeria.
But there is the economy on one hand, there's also the public health measures. I mean, the steering committee says the review is based on science, national experience and global developments. I mean, how do you expect scientists to interpret this? This is vis-a-vis what we're seeing in our numbers, which a bit, zigzag when you look at the number of infections we're witnessing on a daily basis.
The truth of the matter is we're going to have to learn to live with this virus. The numbers will swing here and there. The danger is that the more times the virus passes through the human body, the higher the risk of developing new variants. But if we can get everybody vaccinated, and the real issue is to make sure as many people as possible, in fact, everybody gets vaccinated. The more people we get vaccinated, the lower the risk of developing new variants, the lower the risk of transmission. And the truth of the matter is that the economics will drive the outcome of this in the long run, because we cannot say because we want to reduce the transmission to zero, everybody stay in one place, and then we lose out entirely on generating business and generating economies. So I think this is still a very welcome development. And certainly the message is that as soon as possible, do get the double vaccination.
If you can, explain to us a little bit more where it says the COVID-19 PCR tests be done on days 2 and 7, and this is for the unvaccinated or partially vaccinated travelers.
Well, the essence being that if you're unvaccinated or partially vaccinated, doing the test on day 2 and 7 allows us to isolate, allows us to reduce transmission by asking you to go into a 7-day quarantine. But if you're fully vaccinated, then the chances of you passing on having the virus and passing it on are much, much lower. So there is a lot of merit to that. Having the day 2 and 7 is still expensive, but there's a lot of merit to doing the day 2 and 7. And then certainly reducing it to the day 2 only for the fully vaccinated is added incentive for everybody to get the vaccination.
Some people might have just recovered from COVID and they're wondering, is it safe for them to travel? Some people also wonder, can flying an airplane increase one's risk of getting COVID-19? How would you answer that?
Well, certainly. Let me start with the second one first, because we've discussed this quite a few times on channels. The airplanes have always had a fantastic airflow and air filtration system, which has always been in place. Don't forget, if the airline industry didn't do that, we'd be seeing a lot more airborne transmission of tuberculosis even before the COVID-19. So they have a fantastic airflow system where all the air in the cabin is sucked down and passed through filtration membranes before being recirculated back into the aeroplane. So certainly air travel in and of itself is extremely safe. Now, the issue of having COVID and recovering means that your immune system at that point is much higher. So if you have had COVID and recovered, you have a much higher immunity level than if you've never had it, or if you had it and you're not recovered. Then if you've had it recovered and you are vaccinated, it means that your immunity level is that much higher. And therefore, the danger of you getting serious infection and dying from it or being hospitalized is much, much, much lower. In all, by all accounts, being vaccinated is the best thing that can happen to each and every one of us.
Finally, Dr. Robert, what happens if there is a sick passenger on an international or domestic flight?
Well, this is why we're very strict about where you're sitting, who you're traveling with, where you're seated on the airplane, so that we can do the track and trace. and we will do the track and trace. So if everybody in that aircraft who has been exposed to that sick person, usually we're just worried about the people immediately around them, but it enables us to track and trace all the passengers on that plane and then alert them. If they're fully vaccinated, we're not as worried as if they're not vaccinated at all. And we will ask those who we track and trace to isolate, quarantine for the 7 to 10 days, and we will test them so that if they do start developing symptoms, we're on hand to assist.
We appreciate your time always on the program. Thank you so much, Dr. Larry Roberts, public health physician. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.